through Friday from 2 to 7 right here on 1050 ESPN New York. A lot of baseball stuff with Santana having elbow surgery, bone chips removed. He's going to be out for the remainder of the season. Billy Wagner has finally given his consent, so he's going to Boston. He'll finish out the season with the Red Sox. But, the main portion of the beginning of the show was about Mark Sanchez and whether or not he's ready. A guy who was ready when he finally entered the NFL was Warren Moon. And he joins us now. Warren, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Did you get to see any of the Jet game yesterday?
I watched a little of it, yeah. And both quarterbacks had their little moments, but they both rebounded pretty well, I guess, under the circumstances.
How different is it? I mean, we talk about Mark Sanchez that, he didn't have that many games that he played at USC, and he left after his junior year. It just seemed like the game was moving too quickly for him yesterday. How long does it take to get over that?
Well, it's going to take a while. It's going to take probably into the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season, if he's the starter this season, to really get adjusted to the speed of the game, because preseason is one speed, and then you get into the regular season, it becomes another speed, another intensity. So he's got to get used to that adjustment as well. And he won't see a much better defense than he saw last night, so that was a good test for him this early in the preseason.
Now, can Rex Ryan legitimately give him the starting job off that kind of performance? Because technically he threw 2 pick sixes if Ray Lewis doesn't drop the ball.
I think he'll learn a lot from that, and the next time out, you'll see how you adjust from that. I think the third game is always an important game for whoever your starter is going to be, because they're going to play the majority of the time. He's going to get a chance to go through some situations he probably hasn't done yet, like 2-minute drill right before the half. He'll get to go in the locker room, cool down, and warm back up again in the third quarter. So all those things you want to see him do and see how he adjusts to that.
He also looked nervous. Now, that could be because it was his first NFL start. Does that go away, or is that something he's going to have to go through his first regular season start and then his first postseason?
Yeah, everything he's doing right now is going to be new to him. So that was his first primetime television debut, so I'm sure he was a little nervous. Every player and every quarterback is nervous before every game. It's how nervous are you before the game? I love to be nervous before a game. I played better, but you didn't want to be so nervous that it affected the way you played.
Now, when you're nervous before a game, did you bring it out on the field? Because we had Bill Russell on my show on TV where he said that he would throw up before every single game he ever played. But do you bring it out on the field of play?
You don't want to bring it out on the field of play. You want to be nervous, though, but once the kickoff comes and once you get your first chance to go in the game, whether it's a handoff or a pass play, hopefully the nerves go away right there and you're focused into what you're doing. If you're continuing to be nervous when the game started, that's not a good thing.
Now, Ray Lewis said something that he said his eyes got really big. Is that a sign of nervousness?
I don't know with Ray. I think that's a sign that he's getting ready to lay into somebody.
Do you remember your first pro series?
I do. I remember it was against the Raiders. It was a regular season. My first regular season game, it was against the Raiders, who had just won the Super Bowl, and I got hit a bunch that game. I got hit like 18 times in that ball game. But
and they were mean, too.
They were really mean. They had Lyle Alzado during those days and Howie Long, and it was a pretty good test for me my first time out. I threw a couple of touchdown passes, but we got beat that day, I think 21-14.
Did you get a chance? I know you do the Monday Night Football with Marv Albert on radio. Did you get a chance to watch Sanchez at all last year with USC?
I watched him a lot. I'm a big USC fan. I grew up in L.A., so I rooted for USC my whole life. And even though I went to the University of Washington, I have a lot of respect for that program. So there's no question you watch USC football if you're on the West Coast.
All right, what'd you see? Do you think this guy translates into being a pretty good NFL
quarterback? There's no question he's going to be a good player. It's just a matter of time. And every young quarterback that comes into this league is going to go through his ups and downs. I don't care if it's John Elway or Troy Aikman or Peyton Manning. Anybody who came in as a first pick, they're going to go through some of those ups and downs. And you just want him to make sure he has more ups than downs, because there will be some down times where he'll throw a pass and you'll go, well, why did he do that? Well, he's a rookie, and he's going to get fooled sometimes by veteran players out there with a lot of different defensive schemes that he's never seen before, especially once the regular season starts.
Do you think the Jets should have went out and got a veteran just as insurance and then somebody for him to lean on?
I think it would have been nice to have had that for him, yes. Definitely somebody he could lean on, somebody that can teach him how to study the game. I think Kellen Clemens has a little bit of that, but he's never played really in games. But he knows – he's been around long enough that he knows how to study. He knows how to get ready for an opponent. But it would be good to have somebody to lean on that's actually been through the wars and played in a lot of games.
Talking with Hall of Famer Warren Moon here in the studio for the Michael K. Show.
It's probably not too late to do that. There's going to be some veterans that come loose here at the end of these cuts. So maybe there's somebody they could bring in if they go with Mark and feel like you don't want to have Kellen around because it's just not going to be a good situation having those two guys around. Bring in another veteran that's familiar with that system but can help Mark.
Now, they talk about growing pains. I always wonder, is there a real thin line between growing pains and ruining a guy? I mean, is there a point where you could really hurt a guy?
You really could. It depends on how much you give him. And I think the offensive coordinator is going to be vital to this. His play calling, what types of plays he gives them. You look at Joe Flacco last year and also Ryan at Atlanta. Both of those guys had good play callers. Mike Mularkey, a really good play caller that did a good job with Matt Ryan over there at Atlanta. And he kept him out of bad situations. They ran the football. Both of those teams were in the top 5 in rushing in the league. So that's going to help a young quarterback. And then if you have a defense like Baltimore had, that's going to help them too, because you're always going to get the ball with pretty good field position. If you do make a mistake, that defense is probably going to stop the other team or maybe get the ball back for you. So those are comforts for a young quarterback to have.
It's a copycat league. So say Atlanta and Baltimore didn't have the seasons they had last year with the rookie quarterbacks. Do you think the Jets would have gone with this plan anyway?
I don't know. I don't think they would have, but I think because the Jets knew what they had coming back. They've got a pretty good defense themselves. So having a good defense, having a good running game, with Leon Washington and also Thomas Jones, that gives a quarterback some something to work with as far as everything is not put on his shoulders. This isn't going to be a passing game where he's throwing it all over the field. He's got a good running game. He's got a good defense now. He just doesn't need to screw things up.
Now, Rex Ryan has said that he wants to name a quarterback before the third game, which is Saturday against the Giants. Can he name him the starting quarterback off that poor performance? Do you think that they should wait another week? And what happens if he has a terrible third game?
I think he wants to go ahead and make that decision because he wants to give whoever that starter is going to be a lot of time of playing in that third game, because you don't want to play your starters too much in that fourth game. You don't want to get anybody hurt before the regular season. I've never believed in that. I always wanted to play all the way through. You can't worry about getting hurt in the games. I like to get as many reps as I can as I go into the season. But coaches have really taken a different approach over the last 4 or 5 years because of the numbers on the roster.
Do you think Eli Manning has to reprove himself now? He's going to have a full season without Plaxico Burress, or do you think that's already been done?
I don't think he has to reprove himself. He's still the same quarterback, but it is tough not having a big comfort zone like Plexico out there. Every quarterback likes to have that one receiver you can go to in a certain situation, and he's going to make a play for you, and he doesn't have that now, so somebody's got to step up and become that guy. I don't know if there's anybody on their roster right now that can become that guy, because Plexico was so unusual with his size and everything that he takes advantage of a lot of defensive backs with that size advantage.
Hall of Famer Warren Moon is in the studio with us here at the Michael K. Show, 1050 ESPN New York. You have a new book out, Never Give Up on Your Dream, My Journey, and you wrote it with Don Yeager, who's a big-time writer. So
he did a very nice job for me.
Tell me, you really opened up in this book. Why did you feel that you wanted to write this?
A lot of people would ask me about writing a book throughout my career and also at the end of my career, and I was just never in a place to do it, just because there was a lot of things I just didn't want to revisit. I didn't have the time to do it. But now I'm at a place in my life where I felt like, okay, this is a good time for me to write a book. I can be honest and open about everything that I've dealt with, and I'm in a place where I can do that. So I think this is a really honest account of my life, of the journey that I went through as a young kid, having a dream of making it to the NFL, and some of the different obstacles and things I had to go through in order to make it.
Now, you obviously had a great career at Washington. You took the Huskies to the Rose Bowl. They upset Michigan.
Right.
And then you can't get a job in the NFL. Why?
Color of my skin,
you believe that was it?
Yeah, I think it was not so much blatant racism, because you can't say it's racism. There's over half the league is African American, but at that particular position, the quarterback position, there were stereotypes that we just couldn't play that position, and you just didn't see a lot of African Americans at that position, especially when I was coming out of college. But that's what I ran into. It was basically the decision was made by NFL teams that I was going to become a defensive back or a wide receiver, and they weren't going to give me a chance to play it. And that's all I wanted, was an opportunity to play the position, but they weren't going to give it to me, so the Canadian Football League did, and that's where I decided to go.
How do you not get angry at that? Because you were so successful at the college level, at the highest level, you win the Rose Bowl, and you can't get a shot at the end.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even give you a sniff to try?
No, and that's all. That's the thing that hurt me the most. Not so much that I wanted to be guaranteed a first-round pick or guaranteed a job on a team. I just wanted to be able to line up behind center and show you that I could do it. But nobody came out to work me out as far as a quarterback. No one invited me to the NFL Combine to see what I could do. So I went to Canada, and I used that anger kind of as a chip on my shoulder to kind of prove and show people what I could do. And that's kind of what I did when I went to Canada. I had to play the game with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder.
Now, was the CFL more open-minded, or were they just desperate for the talent?
They were both. They were really open-minded. There were a lot of African-American quarterbacks up there at the time when I went there. Condridge Holloway was up there, Chuck Ely, Jimmy Jones, a lot of guys that I had watched when I was a young kid. And the thing I loved about playing in Canada is I was just judged up there by how I played. If I played well, I was cheered. If I didn't play well, I was booed. There was no racial overtones to it. There was no things being yelled at me from the crowd like it was when I was in college, things like that. So it was a refreshing atmosphere to be around.
While you're there, though, are you thinking, I'm just using this as a stepping stone to get to the NFL, or were you saying, I'll make a career here. I'll play in Canada and I'll be fine?
I was really happy enough to make a career there when I first got up there and spent the first 3 years or so. And then I had so much success in my first 4 or 5 years there. We won championships every year, and I did a lot of things individually. It just wasn't a challenge anymore for me. And then in the back of my mind, my dream was always to play in the National Football League. And I'm watching games on television going, I can be doing what this guy's doing out there, or I'm better than this guy right here. But the only way to prove that is to actually get out there and show what you could do against the best players in the world. So that kind of drove me to want to come back to the NFL.
Now, did you send out feelers when you were ready to go to the NFL, or did the NFL come to you after watching how successful you were?
The NFL came to me, and I think during '88 when there was a strike, our games got put on television a couple of times down here because the NFL games weren't being televised, and a lot of people got to see me play, and then scouts really started coming up there and watching me, and the rest is kind of history.
With the 3-down rule, did you just throw more? Did that make you a better quarterback because they were so pass-happy up there?
Yeah, it was the 3-down rule. It was taking advantage of the field up there, the wider field. You had to be able to throw on the run, and if you did throw it, so say a drop back out or a comeback, you really had to have a pretty good arm in order to throw the ball out there because the field was so much wider. And then playing in the inclement weather, we played in a lot of wind up there because it's really flat, so you had to learn how to throw the ball not only against the wind, but also with the wind at your back, because the ball can really take off on you when you have the wind. Kind of like playing here at Giant Stadium, and then playing in the cold. I played in some games where it was like minus 42 Celsius up there. So I learned how to adapt my game to a lot of different weather and different conditions, and I think it made me a much more versatile quarterback when I came down to the NFL.
I was going to say, do you think that those 5 years in the CFL made you a better player? Would you have been as good a player if you went from Washington right to the NFL?
That's really hard to say. I know in certain areas I probably wouldn't have been, depending on where I played, just because of the weather and things that I talked about that we had to play in. And then being able to throw on the run and all those things, because you didn't do a lot of that down here in the NFL. When I came down here and we started running the run and shoot, because I had that history of playing on the run in Canada, it made me better in that offense. So it seemed like any offense that I went to, whether it was in Minnesota or Seattle or whatever, I was always productive just because I was really versatile. I could just kind of adjust to whatever offense I was put in.
Now, I'll ask you the same question I asked about the CFL with the NFL. Is the NFL now more open-minded, or did they just cave into the talent?
About it. They are much more open-minded. And I think it was because of Doug Williams winning a Super Bowl. That kind of erased a lot of the stigmas that were out there and the stereotypes that black players couldn't lead or lead a team to a championship or think and do all the things that a quarterback's asked to do. Or Randall Cunningham, the way he played during that same time when I was playing. And then myself, I think all of our performances were at a high level most of the time, and that made people think, hey, these guys can play. So it opened up the door for all these guys that you see playing now.
When you joined the Oilers, did you sense a subtle racism even from the players? Because, again, okay, you did it up there, but that's the minor leagues. They probably thought, did they think a black quarterback couldn't do it there?
I think it was more of a respect thing. You had to earn their respect. And once I earned their respect as far as my work ethic before the season actually started, after I signed, watching how I worked in the weight room, on the field, and then once I got out there, all players want is who's going to help them win. They don't care about what color you are, and that's the great thing about sports. It kind of brings all these different races and nationalities together because everybody's trying to get the same thing, which is when you win a championship.
I'm sorry.
It really is unbelievable. You think about it. We have an African-American president now, and you can't think that like 25 years ago, that people were so short-sighted to think, well, the color of a guy's skin, he couldn't do this job. It's mind-boggling to me.
Well, it was a lot of different positions as well. It was the center position. You didn't see a lot of black centers because they made all the calls in the line of scrimmage. You didn't see a lot of black middle linebackers, and you didn't see a lot of black safeties. Those things changed a little bit faster than the quarterback position did, but the quarterback position was probably the last one to really get that open-mindedness that we could play at every position. And I think you don't see that now in the NFL. I think with the number of African-American quarterbacks in the league right now, general managers, owners, scouts, they're looking for the best players to help their teams win right now.
Have you ever been told by an African-American kid that I now want to play quarterback because I know I can because you did it?
Tons. Everywhere I go around the country, there's guys that either made it or didn't make it, and said that I had a lot to do with the reason why they wanted to play the position. So
that must be cool.
I knew that when I was playing at the time, that I had that burden, that I was not only playing for myself or my team, but I was playing, for my race, that I had to do well in order for other guys to get an opportunity.
Saying that, can you even imagine what Jackie Robinson went through?
That's where I got a lot of my, intestinal fortitude. I read his books and I knew his story. Knew he wasn't probably the greatest Negro player to ever play, but he had the right temperament, he had the right personality to deal with everything that he had to deal with, as far as the fans and everything and all the racism that he confronted. That really inspired me and kind of helped me along when times were tough, because I heard a lot of crap. My family did, and I got death threats, the whole bit. So I know that he went through all of that, and if he could go through all of it, then I could go through all of it.
Can you stay another segment?
Sure.
All right, Warren Moon, we're talking with him. He has a new book out, Never Give Up on Your Dream, My Journey. Warren Moon with Don Yeager. We'll talk about some of the threats that he had to go through and obviously the great NFL career that he had that ended up in the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. The Michael Kay Show rolls till 7. Warren Moon's going to be back with us, 1050 ESPN New York. Back here on the Michael Kay Show, talking with Hall of Famer Warren Moon. He has a new book out, Never Give Up on Your Dreams, My Journey. You talked about when you got to the NFL, there were racial taunts and things like that. Tell me about how that came about and how you dealt with it.
Well, it was more towards my family that it really bothered me, because I had dealt with it in college, and I knew it was there in the stands. You could hear stuff every now and then, especially when you went on the road. But when you're a player out there on the field, you can't hear any of that stuff that's going on. But when you have young kids, when you have a wife that's sitting up in the stands having to deal with that, it's one thing to get booed if you're not playing well, but it's another thing for the name calling and all the different things that they were yelling at me. And having my sons come up to me in my locker after games in tears, wondering why people were calling me those types of names. That made it tough to be a dad, because if we lost that game, it's tough enough that you lost a football game. Now you have to switch to your dad cap and all of a sudden make some sense out of what they just had to deal with in the stands.
Was it the worst in Houston? You played Houston, the Vikings, Seahawks, and Kansas City. Was it bad in Houston?
Yeah, that was the
South?
worst. Yeah, I think that was the worst part, and it was mainly in the beginning years when we weren't winning in the first couple of years of the rebuilding process. Then once we started winning, a lot of that went away. Plus, I got them a luxury suite, so they didn't have to deal with any of that. that helps.
It's hard to get in the mind of somebody that's small-minded. But how do you kill the quarterback when, as you said, there's so many African Americans playing in football? So it's acceptable for a wide receiver or a linebacker,
right.
but the quarterback, they just couldn't digest that.
And that's all right, because the quarterback is usually going to take the brunt of any criticism when a team isn't doing well. And I understand that. That's one of the reasons why I take the job, is because I like that type of pressure. But it's one thing to boo a guy, and it's another thing to call him names that have to do with his race. And that's where I think the line should be drawn. But there's ignorant people everywhere. There's prejudice everywhere, and you just hope that over a period of time that prejudice will start to diminish. But it'll never completely go away. I know that. I'm not that naive.
You were one of the forerunners of the run and shoot. Why do you think it was never really embraced before then? And do you think it would still work now? Is it kind of an offshoot of the West Coast?
Yeah, I think a lot of quarterbacks can't run that offense. First of all, you have to be pretty versatile, like I talked about earlier, with being able to throw on the move, being able to half roll and throw the football. There's a lot of little nuances to that offense that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. So that was one of the reasons I was able to do it. And then it's an offense that, because you have no tight ends on your roster, it's very hard at the end of ball games to run the clock out and run the football, because at the end of a game, when you need that one drive where you need 2 or 3 first downs to get the game over with, you're still throwing the ball, and if you're not completing passes,
right,
now that clock's stopping and the other team's getting opportunities. So I think that's one of the reasons a lot of teams went away from it, is because we never had that complete success going all the way with it. If we would have went all the way with it, like you talked about, copycat league, other teams would have done it a little bit more. So I think that was one of the big reasons why it went away. But if you look at all the pass concepts that teams are using, they're still using the pass concepts of the run and shoot, all the different adjustable routes and things that they use. I can see the pass combinations when I'm watching different teams play. They just have a tight end doing a lot of that stuff, not another wide receiver.
Who was the best player you ever played with?
Man, the best I ever played. Probably Bruce Matthews. He's an offensive lineman in the Hall of Fame now. The guy played 19 years at offensive guard, center, and tackle, made All-Pro at 2 of those positions, probably could have made it at center as well. So he's probably the most versatile offensive lineman I've ever seen. But I played with a lot of great athletes, guys like Chris Carter. I played with him in Minnesota. Just an unbelievable receiver, great hands, always wanted the football. I mean, he's no different than any other wide receiver, but just a great competitor.
Now, of the quarterbacks playing now, who do you think would be best suited to run the run and shoot?
There's a lot of them, I think, that could do it now because there's so many more versatile quarterbacks in the league. The game has kind of changed to where you better be able to move around a little bit or you're going to be a sitting duck in the pocket and you're going to get hit a lot. So, guys like Donovan McNabb could do something like that, or Michael Vick would be perfect for it. I think Drew Brees would be good at it because he's a guy I think that can play on the run. He has a nice strong arm that he can get the ball down the field. You got to be able to make all the throws, and you definitely have to have an arm that throws the ball down the field because it's more of a vertical offense.
Could you have run the Wildcat? Or did you not run as well?
Yeah, in the early years I would have. I learned very quickly that the league is not a place for quarterbacks to run unless you have to, and you better get on the ground fast because those guys are out to kill quarterbacks when they get outside the pocket. And I try and tell all young quarterbacks that come into the league with that running ability, get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Only run if you have to and get out of bounds or get down on the ground.
What do you think of how Brett Favre has handled retirement, retiring, unretiring, come back? Do you like the way he's handled it?
Not really. I mean, I'm different, and I'm sure you're different in the way you make your decision-making, but Brett Favre, that's him. You watch him as a player. If you ask one of his receivers in a progression of a route if the ball was coming to them or not, they never know when it's coming to them because he doesn't go by any type of progression. He goes by what he feels, and he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and that's kind of how he's handled this whole retirement thing. One month he feels like he doesn't want to play, the next month he feels like he does. That's Brett Favre. That's what makes him special, and I love having him back in the game because when he plays, people watch, and you never know what he's going to do out there, and that's another reason why I like watching him play. So him being back, I'm excited about. Minnesota has a better chance of winning, I think, with him out there, but it remains to be seen because he is, getting close to 40, and we all know that once you get to that age in any sport, you start to diminish, or some guys are able to play longer. We'll just have to wait and see how it turns out.
Talking with Hall of Famer Warren Moon here in the studio, the Michael K. Show, 1050 ESPN New York. How did you play so long? I mean, you played forever.
I did. I played till I was 44, and I surprised myself. There's no question about it. I never thought I'd play that long. When I came back from Canada, having played there 6 years, I felt like if I could get another 6 in this league, that's a 12-year career. I thought that would be just great. But, I played 17 years in this league, and I took very good care of myself. I didn't have any major injuries. Thank God for that. And I just had a love and passion for the game that it just never went away. And so that was one of the reasons why I was able to play that long.
A lot of players always say this, and then when it's over, they said they were lying. But they always say, well, it doesn't matter if you don't win a championship. You don't really need that. And, then they'll come. John Elway said, well, I was lying.
Right.
So when he finally got the 2, it completed him. The fact that you didn't win an NFL championship, does that gnaw at you?
Yeah, it does. It does. And because that's why you play the game, a team sport. You play a team sport to win a championship. And I won a championship on every other level except for the NFL level. And there's no question I had opportunities to do it. I played on some really good teams that I think had a chance to win a championship, but we just didn't get it done. So, yeah, that's something that does gnaw at me. But on the other side, I accomplished so much more than I ever thought I would accomplish, especially given the fact that nobody thought I could play the position when I came into the league. So being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I mean, that to me is you're in the cream of the crop that ever played this football game. So I never thought that would happen either. So that's something that I can always take to my grave with me. I'll never be cut from that team.
Most memorable game you ever played in?
Probably the Buffalo game.
Yeah.
No question about it. It had to be a loss, but when you have control of a game like that the way we did and let it get away, you have nobody to blame but yourselves. And we took our foot off the gas when we should have just should have put the pedal to the metal and just wiped them out when we had a chance.
When they're coming back, is it like a snowball rolling down?
That's exactly how I described it after the game. It was like a snowball that we just could not stop that momentum. And they made some plays. There was also some questionable plays in there that, say, if instant replay would have been around, some of those plays might have been turned around. But you can't cry over that type of stuff right now. Like I said, we had a chance to win that game, had control of it, and we let it get away.
So you talked about taking the foot off the pedal. So what's going on at the half? Were you daydreaming about the next round at the half that early in the game?
I'm walking around the locker room going, guys, we got 30 more minutes of football, and we're moving on. And guys are literally looking at me. I could see the expressions on their face like, what are you talking about? This game is over. You could just kind of sense that coming back. As much as I was walking around yelling on both sides of the locker room, on the defensive side and the offensive side. And then we come out in the third quarter, first series, they throw an interception, we pick it off and take it back. Now we're up 35-3. Now you could really sense that there was a confidence on that sideline, but then that's when things started to change. Buffalo got the football back. They scored. We went, I think, 3 and out, and they got the ball back again and scored. Then they onside kicked, got the ball back again, and scored again. Next thing you know, it's a football game. So, like I said, we went into a prevent defense, and a prevent defense doesn't do anything but prevent you from winning to me because we stopped being aggressive on both sides of the football.
Now, throughout your career, I think 6 concussions?
Yeah.
Why? Why did that happen to you so often, and what has the NFL done stepwise to stop this stuff from happening?
You got to remember, I played a long time, and it wasn't all 6 in the NFL. It was like in college, I had 1 in Canada, I had, I think, 4 in the NFL. So when you play as long as I did, that's probably going to happen to you. You're going to hit the ground, and I threw the ball a lot. So I took a lot more hits than a lot of guys, a lot of quarterbacks. But the league has done as much as they possibly can to try and cut down on the number of concussions. It's still a very violent sport. It's still a game where there's going to be collisions, but the equipment is better now than it ever was. I think they know more about concussions. I think they're baseline testing all the players now, so they know exactly what a normal brain wave is compared to if you do get a concussion on what is normal and what isn't. So there are a lot of different ways, plus the way they treat players and what they make them go through before they put them back out on the field. I think that they're doing as much as they can, but those are going to happen because you got to remember some of these guys are colliding heads every play of the game.
So let's say the technology existed when you played. Do you think you would have missed a lot more games or maybe not played 17 years?
I would have not played, say, the next week after having one. I probably would have been held out another week. And I remember my last concussion was in 90, I think it was. Rod Woodson hit me, and I hit the AstroTurf. I tried to play the next week. And even though you can go out and practice and do all the things that you're capable of doing, once you get into a game, the game speeds up, and all of a sudden you got to make decisions a lot faster. And I could just tell in the ball game I wasn't as sharp as I should have been. Practice is one speed, the games are another speed. I told the coaches to take me out in the third quarter because I just couldn't. What's the word I'm looking for? I couldn't
process the info.
That's one of the things, yes, and I couldn't execute. Right. I just couldn't execute our offense.
Talking with Warren Mooney, has a new book out, Never Give Up on Your Dream, My Journey. He wrote it with Don Yeager. In the book, you're very forthcoming about your divorce. Why would you come forward on something like this?
Well, I think if you're going to write a book about your life, you got to kind of write about everything that happened, what big time events, what low points, what high points, and I just didn't want to hold back on anything. And if the book comes out and some of these things are very public, it's like, well, then why didn't you talk about that? That happened in your life. Mm-hmm. So I just tried to hit on everything that happened in my life, especially things that people already knew about anyway. I just was never able to express my feelings about a lot of these different situations. Now in the book, I'm able to express myself.
Is it tough for a professional athlete to stay married with everything that's thrown at a professional athlete?
It really is. It takes a lot on both sides. It takes a very special woman. And, it takes a lot of people around you to help, to keep that, to keep everything in order because you're pulled a lot of different ways. We're not taught how to be professional athletes. We're taught how to be football players or basketball players or whatever it is, but there's no guide that tells you what's to deal with people out in the public, with all the different investment people that are going to come after you, all the different charities that are going to want your time, all the different things you have to deal with, and you have to really try and keep balance in your life. That's the biggest thing I think I learned from playing all those years. You got to try and maintain balance.
Now, in preparation and travel, when you're doing the Monday night games, is it close to at least keeping you into football? It's not going to simulate being on the field, but does it keep you in touch where you still feel that same rhythm?
That's one of the reasons why I'm doing it is not so much I want to be this great broadcaster, but I think it keeps me around the game of football that I've loved for so long. And I didn't want to coach. I didn't want to go that far because coaching is even more of a commitment than players. You're talking 15, 16, 17-hour days those guys are putting in. Well, I played 23 years. I didn't want to, work that hard when I got done playing, especially at one thing. There's a lot of different things I like to do. So being involved in the broadcasting keeps me around football, keeps me around the topic. I think I learned so much about it that I can talk about it very well, and it's just a great game.
Let's talk about finally what's going on in the NFL. Roger Goodell seems like he's the long arm of the law right now. And what's your take on, guys, what Plaxico did, Michael Vick being out, what Pac-Man Jones has gone through, Dante Stallworth?
Well, I think Rogers pretty much said when he took over that he was going to come in and he was going to be a little bit tougher on rules violations, and I think he's done that. I think he's really made a statement with a lot of the players. He's not going to tolerate a lot of things, and maybe some guys in the beginning have been made examples just to show the rest of the league that this is the way it's going to be. In some ways, you think he might have too much power, but he is the commissioner, and right now, until something different happens, he's the guy that's going to bring down the rules. And I really think what's happening with Plexico, that has nothing to do with Roger, but I mean, you shoot yourself in the leg and you have to go to jail for 2 years. That's pretty tough. I mean, I think he did something really stupid, but I think prison is for criminals, and he's not a criminal. He's not a bad guy.
He did it in the wrong state because of such big gun laws. Yeah.
Well, you were famous. You were getting death threats, as you said.
Yeah.
Your family, you felt threatened at games. Did you were ever tempted to carry a gun?
I never was. I've always been really scared of guns, believe it or not, and always thought about having one in my house. I don't even want to have one in my house just because you always wonder, and you hear stories about kids finding your gun and all of a sudden playing with it and it goes off. So I've always kind of stayed away from it. But I can understand how a lot of guys can feel that way about protection these days. But some of it they bring on themselves. I mean, a lot of them they wear this jewelry where they have $200,000 or $300,000 worth of jewelry on their body. They carry these big wads of money, and guys know that they have this on them. And then some of the places that they go, you have to have a gun with you. So you got to worry about where you go sometimes, what you put on your body. I mean, you're bringing some of this stuff on yourself.
That's what I do when I leave all the time. I mean, right, Don? I put all that bling on and the wad of cash on.
Well,
my God.
The wad of cash, I think, is more accurate.
But then I
jewelry,
just hang with A-Rod, so it doesn't look like I have that much.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, if you're really that worried about it, bring a bodyguard along with you. I mean,
or don't wear it.
Yeah, don't wear it. But even if you don't wear it, look at Charles Barkley or somebody like that. He doesn't wear all that stuff, but he has a bodyguard sometime when he goes out in public. It costs less to have that bodyguard than some of that bling they have on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The book is Never Give Up on Your Dream, My Journey. Warren Moon with Don Yeager, and Don Yeager is one of the best reporters and writers in the business. So the book is a great one, and you're an analyst also for the Seahawks, right?
Yes, for the Seahawks and Westwood One. So I stay pretty busy during football, but I love it that way.
Really good to see you, and really nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
All the best,
really appreciate it.
That's Warren Moon, Hall of Famer. We're thrilled to have him here on the Michael K. Show. We'll talk some more football when we get back. Michael K. Show, 1050 ESPN New York.